and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there, beloved Ascension Pioneers, and welcome to another interesting topic today with me. I'm here in the Alps. I have a beautiful location, recording spot. I'm here on this cliff rock, and I'm overlooking this whole area. It kind of started to rain a bit, and it's kind of chilly, so I hope this won't be too long so that I don't freeze up, because I do want to do more videos for you guys. What I want to talk about today is something that I'm being shown and something that I've recently talked a bit about on my Instagram page. So what's currently happening within our process is an Earth alignment to the greater original position in terms of the solar system, in the galactic scheme of things. What was happening for this certain period of time that we were experiencing as humans on Earth, we were not directly aligned with what I call the galactic pulse of life. So therefore, it was hard for certain life forms, especially for the human patterning, to truly come into their fullest alignment. So people are asking themselves, why is this shift happening now? Why do we know we're ready for this ascension and the upgrade in the human consciousness, making it available to that full potential, so that full rise in human consciousness, so that it can be a full expression, through a gradual process. And a lot of it has to deal with what was prophesied before, in a way. Recently someone showed me in the book of the Keys of Enoch, this chapter about how a certain spectrum of light that we were currently exposed to is not, beneficial enough for us to shift. So we will have to be exposed to a greater light spectrum, so to say. So it's not just enough to receive what we are currently receiving through our sun and the magnetic nature of our solar system, but actually expanding to the greater degree and being exposed to these greater particles. And as you know, we've been traveling through this densified gamma ray light that has been actually creating mutations within us. And these mutations are nothing negative. They're actually the advancements that are, making the human genome, it's almost like alive again. It's almost like bringing that spark of life that was missing for so long in eons of time. So whoever, in these spiritual hierarchies, the beings that are kind of like, in a way, responsible for these evolutionary cycles, everything is a part of this process. And a lot of times as humans, we will feel certain things. We won't necessarily know how to put it into words, but we will feel something is happening. So what was recently shown is that the cosmic heart of the human starts to awaken through this pulse of life. And there's a little bit of that shared in my Pulse of Life Mastery. That's a part of the Tantrika course of Life Force Mastery. That kind of shows you how to create that life force alignment so that it becomes a full movement, throughout your body, so that the non-physical aspects of you are constantly in alignment with the physical vessel of who you are, because the life force needs to animate our bodies in a way that is proportional, so that we truly merge. And I talk about this in terms of soul embodiment, so that the animated life force of the soul becomes fully fused with the body template. So this has been coming up, and this was a part of the upgrading process. But what was recently shown is that the cosmic heart of the human literally starts to awaken when we're being moved and aligned in this new regional positional space in terms of our bigger picture. Because it's not that we're just this isolated planet, it's like traveling around our sun, kind of changing a little bit with the other planets. But this has to deal with galactic proportions. This is kind of the unfolding that takes place in that way. So when the cosmic heart starts to awaken and really pulsate, and a lot of volunteer souls, as the first waivers of this experience, are having at this time major transitions, because our gifts, our psychic abilities, our antennas are being deeply tuned in. And this is also what I've shared recently on my Instagram page. So a part of this process is that the things that were kind of like, they were activated within us, but we did not yet fully have the merge, so that the human counterpart within us, that physical self, can fully merge with the process of, the subtle realms and how the energy travels through us. Because a lot of things we literally needed to adapt to, so that it could be experienced in an equal proportion, so that we wouldn't divide any longer. Well, that's my spiritual experience, and this is one in my dream time when I'm creating, and this is my daily life, these are my daily tasks, and this is when I'm only in the physical. This is not about that. So this passageway into this complete merge has been a transpiring process, and this is a part of the process what I talk about, the becoming of the galactic human. And recently I had some comments when people said, well, we're already the galactic humans. Yes, the template was always set for the galactic humans because we are a galactic race. As you know, on our planet, the humans were seeded through many galactic races, which began in the Lyran, the Vega star system constellation. And it was just, beings were traveling through. They were reaching out as bursting into the various numerous star systems, so that life could be seeded and experienced on different templates. Like each planetary system within different solar systems or become bigger, vaster components of, multiple star systems, and then the constellations that formed certain regional locations of space, which would formulate different experiences. So when souls would incarnate, it would say, well, these are the schools for that kind of learning. Okay, when I go into this constellation, I'm going to experience this and that. And as you know, Earth was a part of a very unique experience, which was almost like a conglomerate of whatever you learn in these, what you would say, more refined systems. And on Earth, it can feel so gross and dense and so many times. But that's why Earth and this experience is so important, because well, in a way, it's in an evolutionary stage in what it's becoming as a template, as a foundation for what it will serve through in the future times to come, is the showcasing of how this can be done. Imagine being so stooped down, in the level of the DNA encoding, and then returning to that full galactic human expression. That's quite challenging, and in a way, a part of this process is also aligned with divine intervention. But divine intervention does not mean someone does it for you, someone does it for us, or we're being rescued. Divine intervention simply means that there's this divine gift of dispensation of energies, and divine dispensation literally comes through purity of divine grace that is literally given to us as a gift. But then it's up to us how we will benefit from that gift. There needs to be an understanding formulated what this gift truly is, because if you don't know what the gift is, how will you use it, right? That's also a part of what is really important. So how can we apply this in our daily lives? The deepest experiences that you have in your meditational practices, it's almost like it's important to know that they're not separate from your daily activities when you go out into the world or you share with other people. It's just allowing that essence component literally makes love with all the aspects of your physical life and sharing with other people, with fellow humans. And in a way, yes, galactic human, it's always been a template because we are of this galaxy, so it's all galactic, right? It's in a way, it's a funny statement when you say it like that, when you think of in terms of we're in the galaxy, so of course we're galactic humans because we are a part of the galaxy. But we talk about this word in a meaning that describes the functioning, the being receptive and perceptive of the galactic consciousness. So I have actually created a course called Galactic Consciousness, which is almost like an introduction to that, which is this new template, and a lot of the humans who are now transitioning into this space. And it has to be approached in a very non-expecting kind of matter. It has to really be understood from the level of creation, which is that if you imagine yourself on the galactic level, your core self constantly corresponds with you by, it's not a linear connection that you're formulating these lines that go out into numerous selves of who you are, but it's, if you imagine who you are at the core, whatever kind of way you imagine your source self to be like, these are almost like when you're singing out, right? You're singing out in creation, almost like Source sings out its songs of vastness. They come out like little spirals. So if you do that in your meditative work, by how you can tune into your core self, is just feeling that from the center of your core, and you can almost like imagine it in your heart. This is how your cosmic heart truly expands and attunes to that awareness. You can see like little spirals. You can imagine them as golden white spirals that are moving out and they're bursting out. And it's almost like if you imagine where do all the galaxies come from? Well, at the larger level, at the larger proportion of consciousness, this is happening at that level, which is the universal level and beyond. We ask ourselves, well, what's beyond the universe? Well, recently I watched this video when they showed like these little bubbles, right? The universes are like little bubbles, and they kind of like, bouncing off of each other, and it's interesting, and they're creating this multiversal perspective. But for us, where we are, these are concepts, and they're going to remain concepts. But the concepts in truth are meant to be applied through us living in a state of complete trust, that these spiraling formations, like cycles of different creations you were building that emanated from your core self, they literally came from the cosmic heart. And that's, for me, what it means to be aligned with the cosmic heart of your creation self. So this alignment, it will occur for each human individually, differently, and this is what I wanted to share in the first part. And when you have an experience of, everything in your life just starting to come together to make sense, even though you don't rationally have to understand it, that's when you're slowly kind of like moving into this cosmic heart that just knows and just beats and it pulsates, and you start trusting that every experience, not just that you have, but you've ever had, was a part of this spiraling process. And that's when you really understand yourself as a galactic being existing in this vast cosmos. Knowing that you carry all these lineages, that you carry all these multiple selves in terms of multidimensional reality, and you accept all of them, and you make peace with everything you thought it has to happen this way, because the cosmic heart is truly the attunement of constant bliss, which is the absolute knowing that it's all perfect, even when your conscious mind would not always agree. So in the second part, I wish to read you some of the paragraphs from this book again. And I was actually reading almost through the entire book. It was just so interesting. It kind of sucked me in. Really surprised me, this book. It's kind of cool. And it's called You're Becoming a Galactic Human. And a vast proportion of this book speaks about us as galactic humans in terms of our responsibility for guardianship. But I want to start today by reading some paragraphs on how the evolution is really structured, because if you watch my previous video and the message of the seed of life and creation love that was channeled through the Elohim consciousness, you have to know that everyone has the potential to awaken that Elohim as a consciousness state within, which is the pure love that is so pure. It's so vast that it can hold a space for life forms. So imagine, I don't have any other representative, but let's say I found this little, it's a rock with tiny little crystals on it. You can't really see it because it's so far away. But imagine that there's an aspect of you so vast in consciousness that when you hold this rock, you have such absolute adoration for it. You're like, oh my God. That's how I feel for the mountains. A lot of my work was with the level of the mineral kingdom and the mountain kingdoms and so on. That's why I'm just completely ecstatic about living in the mountains. But it's not about hiking and going. It's about the state of consciousness that I feel when I'm in the presence of this majestic essence. So when you hold an aspect of that consciousness, and you don't have to physically hold it in your hands, you can just visualize it and feel that love for it. It's when you're actually tuning into this consciousness, when you're literally holding that life form, but you're holding it in your heart. The hands are just representatives of the higher heart and moving through the heart chakra into your hands. So I wanted to share that as a lot of people don't understand why our evolution was in such a way, and a lot of people were asking themselves, why so much evil, why such duality, why so much shadow? And it's really beautifully explained in this book that a part of this galaxy in terms of its self-realization, because even galaxies have a plan for self-realization. They're like themes of the gods, God aspect, God consciousness, a source is singing out, and each a little spiral is actually in a vaster level, is a whole galaxy. Like you have these cycles that you're creating are also in a way mimicking that consciousness, only it's happening on a micro level, and that's the macro level, is the level of galaxy and beyond. So you can understand that each one is spinning, it's in the program of its self-realization, it's constantly moving in that direction. And I love this perspective here when it says that it was decided since the beginning that this galaxy and its program would be that in a way there would be darkness, but in the end it will be shown how darkness is not as powerful as light, and that light illuminates through it all, and that will become a glorious template and manifestation for the many different, exemplifies of living. Because each one, like I said, is a different theme, is a different creation structure that's playing out. And because we function at the minimum DNA level, we're used to, the majority of humans, we weren't in our full galactic consciousness, so we could not understand, we could not feel into the cosmic heart, because once you do your one with the galactic consciousness, it means you understand. Not mentally, but you feel into things of these vast proportions. You just understand that this is something that's evolving, and it requires perhaps what you would require in your one lifetime to experience for a whole galaxy in its lifetime. It's eons and eons of time. And it has its lifespan, just like the planetary systems do in the solar system. So I want to read you this part of the evolution, and then I have a few paragraphs marked. They're not all connected, so just take them each separately, but also find a connection within them. I've circled those that I really felt called to. If you want, you can really get the book itself. It's kind of old, but it's available. I got a used version myself last year, but I wasn't guided to read it, and then this year it just came into my awareness, so it was time. So the spiritual hierarchy, I'm going to read about this. I'm going to start at that point because it's the point of where the evolution here began, and how everything is pre-planned in a way, as I've shared in the Seed of Life and the Creation Love video from the Elohim. The message is that life requires a lot of love to be created. And we can't understand as humans such vastness of love that can hold life forms such as whole planets and solar systems and even galaxies. But we can do our part by becoming galactic humans in a way attunement. And that's what this, the paragraphs, sorry, a little fly here, the paragraphs that I've marked are leading us towards this progression of this evolution towards becoming guardianships, guardians and stewards of this region. So that was the intention. Let's start reading. So the spiritual hierarchy is in charge of your planet. However, they discovered that a certain road had been followed by those that had seized the physical human guardianship of this planet. That means taken over it. The spiritual hierarchy then had two choices. They could eliminate your entire civilization, or they could allow it to spiritually evolve in a way that will allow the greater light, that is the basic underpinnings of all physical beingness, to come forth. They decided that destruction was not desirable, and that evolution would lead to the fulfillment of the prophecy of light. Evolution was chosen so humanity could become greater than its original nature, because here it also describes how evolution is not the only program through which you can evolve, because there's also beings that already are fully galactic, humans expressed. They don't function in a way, they're not evolving in the same way that, humans on Earth are evolving. So we always compare things like, okay, we're evolving like this, then evolution everywhere must be like this in the whole galaxy. It's kind of like different nuances of it, like different flavorings of it. But it's not the kind of evolution that's been it's like this old dogmatic evolution that was presented also by different races of beings to the human collective, which is karma, you reap, you sow, and it's very dense because it makes you feel like you can never progress. It's always like this vicious circle, and a lot of it really is inflicted upon this, pain after pain, sorrow and sorrow, and this constant struggle and battle of good versus evil. And that wasn't a way, an old perspective that was imprinted. And there were also other beings who came in and said, well, let's show the humanity the other compassionate way, which will make them aware that they're actually illumined beings, that they were set forth to become guardians, to become, that movie, Guardians of the Galaxy. Well, in a way that exists, because when you activate the full consciousness, anyone can join in the galactic guardianship in that way. So you see, we kind of think sometimes that things were destroyed, and a lot of the destructions that were happening on this planet, they were not always a part of this higher, higher spiritual hierarchy and the degree. A lot of them were also part of the invasions and a lot of different, it's almost like different agendas on this planet that were happening, were playing out for eons of time. And everyone thought, well, God or whoever is governing a region of space here has its own plan, and it must mean that we're somehow bad because we were punished that way. It wasn't really about punishment. It was never about punishment. But if something sometimes was meant to be terminated, and I've shared with you a video, the Atlantean project of illumination, how sometimes these things were on a higher level called in to be terminated for the purposes of if the foresight, right, that spiritual hierarchy has is so vast that we couldn't see with that same vastness. So it predicts things in a larger kind of like component of that spectrum of the spiral, which means they make higher discerning choices that would affect the whole, not just a particular group. Because as humans, we like to do these, what's in favor. Oh, we were better, so we deserve to be rescued, and those beings don't because they were mean. That's how the human thinks. Well, used to think in the majority of cases. But this is something that has the true love of creation, as I've said in the previous video, holds love for all as valuable for all aspects of creation and all expressions of it. So let's continue reading. So since free will is one of the basic underpinnings of spiritual evolution on your planet, the spiritual hierarchy decided upon the spiritual evolutionary path, and it has been your planet's basic foundation since that time. So because of will, let's say angelic beings, they have no will, like personal will. They're one with divine will, which is all meant to just serve and sustain the whole. It's just pure love. And you can get to the level when you also merge with that divinity of the will, which is no longer just my will, my right, my choosing, but it becomes a part of the greater. It's like what guides you into the greater fulfillment. It's not just your fulfillment of the self, because once you do become self-realized, and that's a prerequisite for that, you start to ask yourself the foundational questions, which is, what is the realization of the self on greater levels, like group realization, interplanetary, interstellar, galactic, universal, that's what leads into those greater levels. So this is why the spiritual hierarchy, after hoping that this disaster, which was the flood, would teach mutant humans that their authoritarian attitudes were ways of folly, did not continue onward. Nevertheless, that is why they continue to send prophets to various parts of the globe from time to time to begin enlightenment training that would bring humans back to the brink of rediscovering their full consciousness and their true spiritual orientation. So this is also interesting. There were various attempts, the last of which was with the Hebrew peoples of the Bible after Exodus, to recreate a Lemurian-style society using the concept of the judges to bring the people into the idea of society led by spiritual beings. It was hoped that when they were in touch with the true God force energies and spiritual hierarchy on your planet, a new civilization could reestablish the original concepts even in the very limited mutant energy forms of consciousness that they possessed. However, as the Bible relates, even this concept failed when the humans who knew they were under divine guidance couldn't change and alter their concepts of reality. We place no blame here, nevertheless, because they still wanted to return to the former kingship and still wanted to return to the concepts of power, which they were actually indoctrinated into, and conquests in ways that were not meant to be. The experiment ended without success. The situation finally led to the introduction of the Christ energy pattern, knowing that it would finally succeed because of the spiritual remnant that it left behind and because of the additional energy the spiritual hierarchy would make later on, as you're witnessing more and more today. So, what's next? So, as you know, the Christed energy came through many beings, such as Jesus the Christ or Buddha, but later they said that what happened in terms of Christianity, it was mutated into a formal concept of religion, whereupon many of Buddha's original precepts were not followed. The same process unfortunately occurred for Mohammed when he brought to Islam a great concept of change, transformation, and many aspects of love and light. When the concepts of these three just mentioned religious philosophies are blended with the religions and prophecies of awakened indigenous peoples, they can serve as the underpinning of the web of consciousness that is now forming around your planet. And the consciousness input of the indigenous people relates to the connection with the land and seeing Gaia as sacred, as holy, as a living consciousness being. So now let's talk about the body. And as you know, I talk about soul embodiment a lot. So they explain that the light soul forms a light body. Since it is a physical universe, this light soul or soul force has created a physical aspect of the light body or the physical body. These energies together form a unity of physical body and soul or light body. In mutant Earth humans, this has been separated because of the nature of limited consciousness. When one is spiritual as well as physical, one can partake of the energies of the physical universe and its evolution. One unites them together to form a path of light that enables the physical universe to evolve to its full potential and also allows the spiritual universe to likewise live through the physical to evolve into what it is truly capable of being. So, there is then a question, then why would we choose to be incarnate or choose to be in this limited, seeing only the third dimensional perspective? So this is something that it is to be avoided. However, many have discovered that when consciousness is limited, then the dominance of physical reality can be used to control others, because you can be in the third dimension, you can be in this density, but you can still have a consciousness that permeates all. But that was taken from as a gift from humanity. So you can use that to control others. Many civilizations have attempted to create races and beings that do just that. They have separated and produced the phenomenon that is known in present human civilization as death. This is a phenomenon that the New Earth Galactic civilization will finally overcome by returning to immortality patterns that are the heritage of all humans in your civilization. However, the experiment that created this temporary death concept over the last tens of thousands of years is one that must be ended. This is what is now happening on your planet. And now, let's see. Okay, last sentence, and then we move into the guardianship. Be comforted that the God force energies that have created everything in this universe have set forth this particular time to bring a great light upon your planet and to allow all humans to bask in that light and reach their full potential. It's not always easy, as you know, when these strong patterns of gamma rays, or these energies that are higher in nature, that work in a way to really penetrate into the living structure of the DNA. It's not always easy, because you're literally witnessing yourself as mutating from one form to another. It's not always so obvious, but if you're observing it yourself month to month or years per years, you will see those differences. So the God and the guardianship, the reason why this is so important is because humanity has forgotten that each planet needs guardians, needs a vastness of a consciousness that acts, like I said, as you're holding life forms with love, so that you can create a biosphere within which life can develop and evolve. So let's begin by looking at God's creation from a purely spiritual aspect. And we've forgotten, so what we do is we don't know who are our guardians at this time, which of course, as you know, are citizens, how do you pronounce that, dolphins, whales, and they're holding through their sacred song everything in form that life force can move through these life forms and continue to develop as in continuation of life. The Earth, as with all the various planets of the solar system, is surrounded by a spiritual hierarchy composed of spiritual beings called angels, archangels, and ascended masters. Their sole purpose is to act as spiritual mediators for the 8-dimensional evolutionary energies. These angelic mediators transfer these energies through the appropriate interdimensional portals for transport into a third-dimensional stellar energy pattern. These creative and evolutionary energy patterns in turn create the physical universe, which includes your solar system and the planet that you're now residing upon. Let's see. Sorry, I have to browse through the book to see where I have it. So then they explain the meaning of time and how time creates these cycles of creation. So time has many meanings and many implications in the divine plan. It is the process by which the light of creation is established in the physical universe. Time is also the mechanism that makes possible all the laws and the methods of creation, yet its function varies with its specific needs. Time is all things, and yet it is none. These concepts are portrayed in our galactic science and in our spiritual philosophies about creation. Through this knowledge, we learn that time is great enigma. Like water on your world, time is said to seek its own level. So, because of that, there is truly no Big Bang, like something just suddenly begins to exist, or no sudden end to creation. The Time Lords and their dimensional hierarchies simply transmute creation into a new reality. Constant, purposeful creation, which the divine plan stipulates. And now we're going to talk about the guardians and what is our future as Earth and also higher galactic guardians. So the spiritual hierarchy members have a procedure that they follow to accomplish the interdimensional energies exchanges. So they need in the physical realm, especially the third dimension, a physical guardian who can perform their task of energy exchange on a smaller and more localized level, such as a star system or a planet. Therefore, the physical guardians of any planet must be beings who are both physical and spiritual. In other words, physical beings who possess full consciousness. You must realize that there is a higher science. This is a spiritual science that understands and encompasses all natural laws and that explains the delicate relationships that exist between them. These spiritual sciences contain the laws of guardianship. They state that first and foremost, a guardian is one who brings in the energies of creation, which is spiritual light and love, and regulates them for the planetary life sphere or biosphere as it is known to modern science. At present on planet Earth, there exist two major species that are designated as guardian groups. The first such species is called the citizen, the whales and the dolphins, who now form the basic guardianship of the planet. The second designated guardians are the Earth human species originally brought from other star systems to their present location on planet Earth. And of course, those of us who come from levels where we are already galactic humans, so we can bring that at this time to lead others into remembering why we're here, to take over the roles. So guardianship can best be described by observing the energies of the citizens. Through the use of their rituals, their sonar songs, and their travels, they vivify the biosphere. Sorry, my tongue gets tied today. Whale song has been found throughout all the oceans of the world. It is also found in and resonates throughout the skies of the earth. It exists even in the deepest parts of Africa, Americas, Asia, and Europe. Because the energies of the citizens can be found both in the sky and in the water, those great energies they bring forth in their song create the resonance that sustains life. Indeed, their rituals have brought forth ongoing and glorious regenesis of life. So, guardianships, furthermore, that also means stewardship. This concept requires that the guardians must set forth energies that not only provide for the renewal of species on the planet, but also give those species an understanding of what it is that they are accomplishing, a gradual growth toward consciousness. This stewardship means that they must either sacrifice the creative energies that they hold in themselves, or else use their psychic and other full consciousness energies to accommodate procreation and the sustaining of life on the planet. Stewardship is a very unique and important process. It is more than shepherding the many species of your planet through their day-to-day activities. It also means setting up maintenance life energies by physically transmuting the creative energies given daily by the Earth's spiritual hierarchy. This action allows each species of your world to maintain itself. It also means that the energies being received every day from the spiritual hierarchy have to be redistributed across the entire biosphere. Guardians must consciously and subconsciously maintain these energies so that they're dispersed in a proper and correct manner. And that was also part of my Elohim message, so go back and listen again if you want to. It really is a lot about that, how the seed of life and all life forms are so vital for all life to be sustained in this equal distribution and continuation of life itself. So this whole process is done every day by the citizens. They also consciously realize the power of this process of interdimensional energy exchange. So it's not just happening on Earth, it's connection to, other regions of space. Guardianship therefore contributes to and preserves preserves the role of Lady Gaia. So guardianship works through the 8 dimensions of creation. It spreads through the great spiritual hierarchies and permeates down to your world. Around the spiritual hierarchy is manifested the physical universe that you're all a part of. As a guardian species, galactic humans are a being of light, a spiritual as well as a physical being. Your capability to be spirit and matter is what makes you a unique creation. In addition, you have been given a special consciousness that extends beyond the mere reflexes of life, such as, the lower desires. Sex, hunger, thirst, and dying. Dying. Sorry, that's funny. So you go beyond the mere physicalness of all this. You are a being who has been put upon a planet as a responsible overseer or steward of other life. This happens because you're capable of full consciousness. So the Earth's physical structure was created for a divine purpose. We all know that. That's where we awake. So this divine purpose was established by the angelics under the great Godhead that was moved through the heart of God into reality. And that's this cosmic heart that the galactic humans are being attuned to now. It was done for one purpose, and to bring forth a creation of physical light. All Earth humans must understand this process and assume their awakening roles. So I think that's it for today. And I also want to invite you, I hope you enjoyed the reading, by the way, with all my flaws. And it's not always easy, especially because my tongue just gets tied. It's just how it is. Part of being human. So I also want to invite you to my audiobook section on my page. It's under my book on my page, Serapina Light. And the 3 books I'm writing are still not finished, but there's audiobooks now available, and I have recently added the 144 Light Beings and this Project of Illumination and Illumin Union audiobook. These are mini audiobooks, by the way. And the second one now about the true meaning and the purpose of the sacred holy Elohim. So everything else can be also found on my page. I hope to talk to you again very soon. I hope this was not too long for you, but people always say they enjoy my videos, so whoever watches probably enjoys. I'm assuming. Otherwise, why would you watch, right? So thank you for staying tuned. Feel that beautiful, joyful expansion in your heart. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're at, do it from a space of knowing that you are the seed of the galactic human that has always been within you. And we are now. It's our generation. There's no future generations because there's only now. And we're the ones who are responsible for this shift happening at this time. And that's where there's so much presence, there's so much mediumship here, and so much divine assistance that always comes to grace. Thank you so much. With love, wisdom, and power, as always. Greetings from these cloudy Alps, but still, nonetheless, very beautiful. I'll talk to you very soon. Take care. Bye. Welcome into my world, the world of the elven song, magical.